Today, we're diving into something really different. It's incredibly raw, incredibly intimate. We're looking at a real, unfiltered digital conversation between two friends, Sehrish and Irfan. And I have to tell you, this isn't a neat story with a tidy ending. It's a fragmented and, honestly, a pretty painful look into the complex pressures shaping their lives, their friendship, and their choices. We're going to start with this line from Sehrish because it just stops you in your tracks. Out of context, it's heavy, it's confusing, and it tells you right away that this story has some deep, dark undercurrents. It feels like a confession, and it really sets the stage for everything we're about to uncover.
So let's begin with Sehrish. If you were to just look at the surface of her life, you'd probably think she has it all. Luxury, privilege. But as we're about to see, the reality she describes is anything but. It is the absolute definition of a gilded cage.
I mean, just look at the incredible contrast here. On the one hand, yes, she's got a chef that costs 40,000 rupees a month. They're drinking imported Australian milk. But on the other hand, she feels completely trapped. Her husband wants this overmodern wife that she just doesn't feel she can be. She also feels like she owes him everything for keeping her, even though they don't have children, something she desperately wanted. It's this bizarre world of immense wealth and, at the same time, absolute powerlessness.
And, this feeling of being trapped, it wasn't some slow burn that developed over years. Sehrish describes how the cruelty started almost the second she walked in the door. It was a truly brutal welcome into her new family.
Just let that sink in for a second. The day after her wedding, her new mother-in-law complains about her long nails, saying she doesn't want signs of love in the food, and then makes her do this. This isn't just a difficult chore, right? This is a calculated act of humiliation. It's designed to put her in her place and establish dominance from day one. It's just a shocking level of psychological control.
And the control was coming from all sides. It was systematic. You've got the daily humiliation from her mother-in-law. Then there's the financial control, with her husband using loans to her family as leverage over her. The emotional manipulation, him posting crude songs on her social media just to embarrass her. It was physical, too. She describes him forcing himself on her even during Ramadan, breaking her fast. And then you get into this really dark psychological territory. Allegations of black magic, and a mother-in-law so paranoid she hires eunuchs as servants because she's afraid other women might be a threat. It's just total entrapment.
Okay, so that's Sehrish's world. Now let's switch gears and talk about her friend, Irfan. His story is different, but in a way, it's also about being trapped. He's not trapped by a marriage, but by the intense societal and family pressures that are dictating who he's even allowed to marry.
So Irfan is basically faced with two choices. On one side, you have Ambreen. She's beautiful, comes from an elite family, and Sehrish is convinced she's the perfect match. Then, on the other side, you have Sidra. And Sehrish is brutally honest here, saying Sidra's older and that, quote, her pick isn't good. But Sidra's family is known. They're respectable. They are the safe choice. For Irfan, this whole decision isn't really about love or personal desire. It's about trying to manage his family's deep-seated anxieties.
And there it is, right from him. His parents weren't worried about whether he'd be happy. They were worried that a rich, powerful daughter-in-law would mean they'd lose control over their only son. The difference in social status was a threat to them, so they pushed him towards the safer option. And Irfan, feeling all that pressure, he eventually caved. And this is where the two stories just crash right into each other. Irfan makes his choice, and Sehrish, who is speaking from this place of deep pain and unhappiness in her own life, she reacts, and their 12-year friendship is about to be pushed to its absolute limit.
I mean, can you imagine? This is what Sehrish says to Irfan about the woman he's going to marry, Sidra. It is just so incredibly blunt, so harsh. You can almost feel her own misery bleeding into her judgment of this other woman. She's not just looking at a picture, she's projecting all of her own disappointment onto it.
And Irfan's reply is just as sharp. He's hurt, he's defensive. His best friend is judging him at this really vulnerable moment. And that phrase, a typical woman, you can just feel the resentment behind it. It's meant to cut deep, and it does.
And look, this wasn't just a one-off fight. This argument, this dynamic, it became their new normal. Sehrish felt like Irfan was abandoning her for a complete stranger. And Irfan felt like Sehrish had become this negative person who could only find fault in everything. The friendship was just fraying under the weight of their own individual traumas.
The fights just get uglier and uglier. She calls him ungrateful, he calls her negative. The whole thing boils over when Irfan compares her to another woman who caused him problems in the past, which, for Sehrish, is just the ultimate betrayal.
And then, in the middle of all this anger and hurt, Sehrish says this incredibly vulnerable thing, revealing just how much his friendship, or maybe the idea of a life with him, truly meant to her. It's heartbreaking.
So, to really get why both of them feel so trapped, we kind of have to zoom out. We have to look at these massive, often unspoken pressures of tradition and family honor that are pulling all the strings in their lives. Just look at the impossible tightrope Sehrish has to walk every single day. Her husband wants this over-modern wife who wears saris to parties and looks perfect. But at the same time, her mother-in-law shames her for waking up late or having nice nails. She's told her only job is to keep her husband happy, which somehow means being a modern socialite and a submissive traditional daughter-in-law. It's an impossible balancing act. She's basically being set up to fail.
And really, all of this comes down to family honor. Status and reputation are everything. That's why Irfan's family is scared of Ambreen but okay with Sidra. It's why Sahrish's mother-in-law has this obsessive need to control everything. And it's why Sehrish feels like she has no way out. For her, leaving an abusive husband isn't just a personal choice. It's an act that would bring deep shame to her family, turning her into an akeli aret, a single woman, in a society that makes that position incredibly, incredibly difficult.
And that brings us to the end of the source material we have. But as you're about to see, there's no real end to this story. There's no resolution, no neat little bow. It's just a conversation that stops cold.
If you look at this timeline, you can see the exact fracture point. In August, they have that huge fight over Sidra. By October, boom, Irfan's married. And through November and December, yeah, they keep talking, but the whole dynamic has changed. Sehrish is still desperate to confide in someone, but there's a new distance between them. The core conflict never ever gets resolved. Their friendship is just permanently changed.
So ultimately, this chat log, it doesn't really offer us a moral or a solution. It doesn't tell us who was right or who was wrong. It just shows us the messy, painful, and deeply complicated reality of two people trying to survive inside systems that are so much bigger than they are.
In the end, we're really just left with more questions than answers. What happens to a friendship that's built on such raw, painful honesty when one person's life changes so fundamentally? And what becomes of a life like Sehrish's, caught between unbelievable luxury and terrible abuse, with no clear way out? The conversation just ends, and we're left to wonder,